Welcome to the B2T show, where we empower Christian patriots with truth. This is Rick, your host.
It says, "Then I saw a beast rising out of the sea, and it had 7 heads and 10 horns, with 10 crowns on its horns, and written on each head was a names that blasphemed God." And so, to understand, Bible prophecy is written symbolically. Obviously, this isn't going to be a literal 7-headed beast that comes out of the sea, right? So to understand the symbols in Revelation 13, we have to understand the keys. So we're going to go through each of the words and the keys in the passage and go through other verses and see what those words mean. And then we're going to take those keys and then we're going to apply it to a system that exists today. And I think it's really clear and concise what system this is. So the first symbol, or the first key to this, is what is a beast? And we go back to Daniel 7 for this. This is the original prophecy. And it says, talking about this prophetic beast, saying, "These great beasts which are 4 kings which shall arise out of the earth." So the words king and kingdom are used synonymously in Bible prophecy, because you cannot have a king without a kingdom, nor can you have a kingdom without a king. So when Daniel 7:23 clarifies this, again talking about the prophetic beast, saying, "The 4th beast shall rise and be the 4th kingdom upon the earth." So I'm pretty safe we can say a beast in this passage means king, political power, kingdom, a nation, or a superpower. The next word is what is the sea in this passage, and this is described to us in Revelation 17:15. The angel says, "The waters which thou sawest where the whore sitteth are peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues." So we can conclude that the sea means people or a densely populated area. Next key is a horn. Again, we go back to Daniel 7 for this. And the 10 horns out of the kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise. A horn in Bible prophecy is a symbol for a king or a kingdom. Habakkuk 3:4 says, talking about God, says that he had horns coming out of his hand, and there was the hiding of his power. So horns are also symbolic for power. So again, a horn means king, kingdom, or power. And blasphemy is used the most in this passage, so this is a really important one. What is blasphemy? I'm talking about the biblical definition of blasphemy. We find this in the book of John, actually. So this is the time of Jesus explaining who he truly is. He says, "I and my Father are one." Then the Jews took up stones to stone him. Jesus answered them, "Many good works have I showed you from my Father. For which of those works do you stone me?" The Jews answered him, saying, "For a good work we stone thee not, but for blasphemy, and because that thou being a man makest thyself God." So blasphemy, definition number 1, is when a man claims to be God, but again, it was okay for Jesus. Mark 2:5-7 says, Jesus meets a man who was sick with palsy, and Jesus says to that man in verse 5, "Son, thy sins be forgiven thee." In verses 6 and 7, there were certain of the scribes sitting there and reasoning in their hearts, "Why does this man speak blasphemies? Who can forgive sins but God only?" So blasphemy, definition number 2, is when a man claims to have power to forgive sin, but again, this was okay for Jesus because he is God. So the third and last final definition of blasphemy is Jesus was taken into question, and the Pharisees asked him if he was Christ in verses 62 and 64. And Jesus said, "I am, and ye shall see the Son of Man sitting on the right hand of power and coming into the clouds of heaven." Then the high priest rent his clothes and said, "Wait, need we any further witnesses? Ye have heard the blasphemy. What think ye?" And they all condemned him to be guilty of death. So again, when the blasphemy definition number 3 is when a man claims to be Christ. But this was okay for Jesus because he is the Christ. So again, we conclude it is when a man claims to be God, when a man claims to be Christ, and when a man claims to have the power to forgive sin. So the next key we need is what is 42 months, because it says the beast will have power upon 42 months. It will be given power for 42 months. So we go into Numbers to figure out what this means. So this is after God took Israel to Egypt. He declares a prophecy saying that Israel would search the land for 40 days. The only thing is that they actually searched the land for 40 literal years, because God says about the prophecy that each day was symbolic for a year. So quickly, Numbers 14:34. After the number of days in which ye served the land, even 40 days, each day for a year, shall ye bear your iniquities, even 40 years, and ye shall know my breach of promise. In Ezekiel 4, God declares a prophecy about the house of Israel and the house of Judah. He tells Ezekiel to sleep on the left side for 390 days, and on the right side 40 days. And according to the number of those days, God said, he has laid upon him the years of their iniquity, and he has appointed him each day for a year. See down here, I'm not going to go through this entire verse, but it says, I have appointed thee each day for a year. So we can conclude that a prophetic day in prophecy, one day means one literal year.
So you're times it by 365 all the time.
Yeah, and so 42 months, it says the beast will have power for 3.5 years, correct? That is 42 months. And if you take the Hebrew calendar of things, it's 30 days per month. That means it will reign for 1,260 prophetic days, but we know that a day in prophecy is a literal year. So 1,260 literal years is how long this system will reign for.
And that 3.5 years is from Daniel, right?
Yeah, and then also goes back into Daniel. It says I think the little horn will rule for a time, a times, and half a time. That is 3.5 years, which is also 42 months. So to really understand the foundation of this prophecy, you really need to go back and research Daniel 2 and Daniel 7 to really get the full grasp of it. I was about to do a whole separate decode on Daniel, but I was like, I'll just get straight to the point and get to the real good stuff here. So I just wanted to go straight to Revelation 13. But I'll show you a bunch of videos to look at after we get through this. You'll find very interesting. So the next key is, what is a saint in Bible prophecy? We get this definition from the Hebrew word kadosh, which means an angel, a saint, a sanctuary, a holy one, and also the Greek word hagios, which means physically pure, morally blameless, or religiously ceremonially consecrated. So again, a saint in Bible prophecy means God's people who are morally blameless. Next, what is a dragon in Bible prophecy? A dragon in Revelation 12:9, and the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceives the whole world. He was cast out of the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. So in the primary sense, the dragon is the devil. That's what we can take from that verse. But there also is a secondary application, and this is I found this really interesting when I first found out about it. Revelation 12:4-5, talking about the dragon, it says, his tail drew the third of the stars in heaven, talking about the angels. That's when a third of the angels rebelled and were cast down to earth. And they cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as it was born. And she brought forth a man-child, who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron, and her child was caught up unto God and to his throne. Again, this is talking about Jesus, in my opinion, because it's only Jesus can go up to God's throne and sit on his right hand. So, first of all, what is a dragon? It is a beast. And remember, a beast is a symbol for a kingdom or a political power.
Now, I see we have a cue drop, so when Josh gets done with the symbols, we'll take a quick break and look at the cue, drop, and then come back to the prophecy. So when you get a good break, let me know, Josh.
Yeah, of course. Yep. So now, who was the man-child who brought up God unto his throne? That would obviously be Jesus Christ, because only Jesus Christ is worthy to ascend into heaven and his Father unto his throne. So when Jesus was first born, Satan tried to kill him, right? That through King Herod, and this is what it's talking about in Matthew 2. It was King Herod of pagan Rome that ordered to kill all the sons of Bethlehem under 2 years in hopes that Jesus would be one of those who were killed. He felt threatened by Jesus because he had heard the prophecy that one day this child would take hold of rulership. So in the secondary sense, the dragon is also pagan Rome. And there's King Herod right there, very evil man. So dragon means Satan and pagan Rome there. And now a sword. What is a sword in Bible prophecy? We get this from the armor of God in Ephesians 6:17, and take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God. So in the primary sense, the sword is the word of God, which is the Bible. The truth is the sword. And then we get a secondary sense in Romans 13, 1 through 4. Let every soul be subject unto the higher powers. There is no power but of God. The powers that be are ordained of God. Whosoever therefore resists the power, resists the ordinance of God, and they that resist shall receive them to themselves damnation. For rulers are not a terror to good works, but to the evil. Wilt thou even not be afraid of the power? Do that which is good, and thou shalt have praise of the same, for he is a minister of God to thee for good. But if thou do which is evil, be afraid, for he beareth not the sword in vain, for he is a minister of God, a revenger to execute wrath upon him that doeth evil. So in the secondary sense, this is saying the sword is a symbol of the civil power. So the sword can be interpreted as the Bible in the primary sense and the civil power in the secondary sense.
You just listened to the Blessed to Teach show. You're now empowered with the truth.